I was really happy I didn't have to introduce myself to the class that stared at me with obvious interest. The people that hadn't seen Jennifer yet obviously wondering who I was, and the ones that had seen her wondering what my connection to her was. As I sat down, the teacher, Mr. Cook, said, "Sarah, would you please help out Brittany as much as possible? If she's behind on anything, let me know." Then he launched into an explanation about this year's topics he'd discussed with us and the rest of the curriculum. The girl next to me gave me a friendly smile. She wore jeans and a light blue top that matched with her beautiful baby blue eyes. Her brown hair cascaded around her in beautiful wavy locks, and I couldn't help but wonder if she was one of the popular crowd or not. "I'm Sarah, and don't worry, Reynolds is a cool teacher even though he looks scary. I'll show you around if you want," she whispered as she stuck out her hand to me. I shook it carefully. "I'm Brittany, obviously." "Thanks, that would be nice. I'm sure I'm gonna get really lost here. It's all so big." She nodded, but we didn't have the chance to talk any further for the rest of that class. I was glad to see that I wasn't behind at all. In fact, I was ahead off the curriculum by a little. That was good because that meant I didn't have to work harder or struggle with this subject, even though I hated math. I knew I wasn't bad at it. I ignored all the stares I was getting and meekly handed Sarah my schedule after class was over. She was sad to see she didn't have the next period with me, but offered to walk me to the next class anyway. I happily accepted and found it easy to talk to her as she fended off curious people with just a stare. That definitely meant she was popular, didn't it? But I wasn't so sure as we passed a group clustered around Jennifer. She didn't spare them so much as a glance, and most girls there actually glared at her as we passed. At the door to physics, she wished me fun and said with a mischievous smile, "I'll see you at English next period if you can find it." Then she darted away through the filled corridors to her own class. With physics, I did have to introduce myself, but it was made easier because Jennifer was in this class too. I got away with hurriedly saying, "I'm Brittany Baker and I just moved here. I love music and reading." After that, I scurried to a chair in the back and sat down beside a bored-looking skinny guy with a messy mohawk. He didn't even look up when Jennifer started introducing herself, taking her own sweet time. There were some oohs when they heard she had the same last name as me, but that seemed quickly forgotten as they all stared at her. Completely entranced, it seemed, even the teacher. "She really your sister?" asked the mohawk guy halfway through class all of a sudden. I shrugged. "Stepsister, actually." "Ah, that explains. You look nothing alike," he said, and then he resumed staring at the chalkboard again as if it was the most important thing in the world. We didn't exchange any more words, but it didn't take that as a bad thing. After all, he was the only one of the guys in there that didn't stare at Jennifer. That made him score really high in my book. After physics was over, I really didn't have a clue where to go. I had been slow to leave the room, one of the last ones besides the mohawk guy, but he seemed to be absorbed in himself anyway. Jennifer had disappeared with a crowd down one corridor, but I didn't know if she had English with me or some other class. I started off in a different direction, hoping to find someone I could ask for help. 10 minutes later, I stood in front of the classroom door to my English class. I was late. The class had already started. Stupid Sarah with her prediction, I thought with a slight smile. Then I knocked on the door, hoping that the teacher would forgive me, since this was my first day after all. "Come in," I heard a male voice call. It was low and pleasant, and it sounded like he had a British accent. I opened the door a little hesitantly and stepped into the room. My eyes immediately found Jennifer standing in front of the class. Apparently, she'd been introducing herself. I groaned internally. Great, that meant she'd be pissed off with me for interrupting. "Jennifer, why don't you sit down?" the teacher said, and only then did I notice him. He couldn't be older, then 25, just like Dannis really. He was tall though, reaching over 6 foot easily. I could tell that even though he was slumped on the edge of his desk, his long legs trailing in front of him clad in ripped jeans. A white button-down dress shirt was stretched across a wide, muscular chest and did nothing to hide how well-built he was. But more importantly, he had beautiful, stormy gray eyes that stared at me as if he could see right through me. Luscious lips slightly parted to show a set of white teeth with dark brown hair hanging messily across his forehead. His nose was flared a little, as if he was breathing in deeply, smelling something he rather liked. I swallowed nervously, suddenly finding it impossible to look away from those stormy eyes. They sparked something in the back of my mind. A feeling? It was spiraling down into my body, making it tingle in the most delicious way possible. The teacher suddenly cleared his throat, and then he said, "You are late. Care to explain why? And while you're at it, introduce yourself too." His voice was beautiful in that British accent, a little husky, and I wondered why that was. I shivered and blushed, finally looking away from him to survey the class. Then I said, "I got lost. I'm new here. My name's Brittany Baker." I swear I saw him shiver as I spoke, but then he nodded and said a little brusquely, "Have a seat, Brittany. Don't let it happen again." I hurriedly took a seat in the back of the class, right next to Sarah, who appeared to have saved me a seat. She looked at me knowingly, winking once before focusing on the teacher. All I could think was, "Oh my God, he's smoking hot. Oh my God." I have a crush on my teacher, and I don't even know what he's like. I didn't dare look up at him again during his entire class, but I could tell everyone liked him. Jennifer was doing her very best to seduce him, sitting all the way in the front. Then again, pretty much every girl tried to get his attention one way or another. Except Sarah. She just kept smirking at me and him as if she knew something I didn't. I had to hold back a groan as the girl standing right next to me introduced herself to the class. My class. She did it with such an air that told me she'd done it plenty of times before and reveled in the attention. Little attention seeker she was. The too small red dress she wore said it all. It screamed it at me from a mile away. She was definitely the type of girl I tried to avoid as much as possible during daytime. At night, maybe if I was very desperate for a meal, but even then I didn't like her scent very much. Too many chemicals from the perfumes sprayed on her skin and the soaps and creams she'd used. Currently, she was smiling flirtatiously at me every other word while still managing to wrap every single male in the classroom around her little finger. Except me, of course. She was skilled, I had to give her that, but that didn't mean I liked her, and definitely not that I was impressed. She probably had a tiny bit of siren blood in her somewhere. The heritage unknown to her, but she deftly took advantage of it. A knock on the door made me smile, finally an excuse to get that Jennifer away from me. "Come in," I called, groaning internally when I heard the girl population in my class sigh collectively at my words. Damned accent. I should have just gone for the American accent, even though I hated it with a passion. The door opened and someone stepped into the room. I couldn't see who, seated on the edge of my desk behind Jennifer as I was, but a delicious scent assaulted my nostrils. Jennifer stiffened, and I was sure she was glaring at whoever it was, her shoulders tensed, like an angry cat. "Why don't you sit down, Jennifer?" I said smoothly, gesturing towards a seat as I spoke. Jennifer whirled around to me, her blue eyes sparkling, a pout on her full lips. I suspected she thought it looked seductive, but it didn't do anything for me. Disappointment flew across her features, but she masked it quickly, sauntering to a chair in the front, swaying with her hips in such a way that I briefly wondered how she managed to walk at all. It just didn't look natural to me. Still, the boys in the room seemed to like it, all eyes glued to her. I turned to face the newcomer and then wished that I didn't. I must have looked like a fool, my mouth falling open just so I could taste her scent better. It was her that I'd smelled before, so delicious that it was almost mouth-watering. Except that the thought alone of biting her for food felt repulsive. A different kind of delicious. She was small, but her legs were long and clad in very snug black jeans, small feet encased in black, worn-looking all-stars. She wore a black sleeveless shirt and a silver necklace, but I couldn't see what exactly. She had her arms crossed in front of her, clutching books to her chest as if she thought she could hide behind them. Her skin was golden, like the sun itself was captured behind it. She seemed to almost glow with it, and I felt such a strong urge to reach out and touch her, to run my hand across that perfect skin, to make her moan my name. I had to clutch the desk tightly to keep myself from actually doing so. She had long auburn hair, cascading around her in wide natural curls, more evidence that the sun lived inside her. Her eyes were a golden brown color, and I realized that both summer and autumn were seasons that described how beautiful she looked. She had literally taken my breath away. I had to force myself to restart the unnecessary motion of breathing. I couldn't go around scaring the kids here. Her eyes were just so amazing that I felt like I would never be able to look away. The longer I looked, the more they seemed like endless pools of molten gold, shining with such allure, pulling me in and telling me they would never let me go. The tingling spreading through my body along with the lust uncurling in the pit of my stomach like an angry beast woke me up. "You are late. Care to explain why? And while you're at it, introduce yourself too." I wanted to snap at her for making me lose my cool, but my voice came out husky and strained. I knew what it meant and it scared me. I got lost. "I'm new here. My name's Brittany Baker." Her voice was like nothing I'd heard before, so melodic and sweet that it sent a shiver down my spine. I hope nobody saw that. She was uncomfortable with all the attention she was getting, I could tell, the way she glanced around at the classroom. The urge to alleviate her suffering was instant, but I still managed to sound sterner than before. "Have a seat, Brittany. Don't let it happen again." I nodded as I spoke the words, pleased with myself for sounding so collected now. Only then did her words sunk in. "Brittany Baker. Oh no, she had the same last name as that Jennifer? They were siblings? Impossible. Brittany, such an old-fashioned name. It suited her in a way. It made her stand out from the rest of the girls these days. I knew I'd never call her Brittany if I didn't have to, though. My tongue already yearning to call her Brit or Brittany. She had walked to a seat in the back, right beside Sarah, and I recognized the mischievous look in my sister's eyes only too well. At her wink, one that told me she knew exactly what I'd been thinking when I first laid eyes on Brittany, I scrambled to a standing position and started class. I couldn't concentrate very well, not with that goddess sitting in the back, spreading that delicious scent. I couldn't understand how none of the other boys seemed affected by it. They still only had eyes for that Jennifer. Mr. Clinton, can you explain me that assignment again? Asked Jennifer halfway through my class. She was leaning forward on her desk so her breast pushed up, revealing more cleavage than I was sure I was legally allowed to see on a student. I swallowed my annoyance and carefully explained it to the entire class again, not even once stepping closer to the blonde as she flirtatiously batted her eyelashes, enticing me to come closer. I only had eyes for Brittany, though. She didn't look at me. Her face constantly flushed as she blushed furiously. It made her even more beautiful. Every now and then, it seemed like she gathered enough courage to peek up through her long lashes and look at me. Every single time, my eyes met those golden orbs of hers, and I couldn't look away. I had never been so happy as I was today when I finally dismissed my class for the lunch break.